Welcome back to Simple Truth, where we make some simple truths out of the passages that we're reading. Last time I talked to you about this whole concept of, would you tell somebody that they're not safe, even if it came as a cost to you, right? Jonathan comes up with this plan, tells David in 1 Samuel chapter 20, he tells David, listen, you go hide. I'll let you know whether you're safe or whether you're not safe, right? So we're going to pick up the story, right, in verse 14, right? And he says this, right? If I am still alive, will you not show me the loving kindness of the Lord, that I may not die? You shall not cut off your loving kindness from my house forever, not even when the Lord cuts off every one of the enemies of David from the face of the earth. So we know what David wanted out of this covenant, out of this relationship. Hey, will you protect me? Will you take care of me? Right? So here's what Jonathan does. He asks the same thing. Hey, will you promise me that you're going to always take care of me? That you're always going to think about me and my family. And even when everything is cut off, God has done all that he's promised for you, will you still carry out, will you still honor our friendship, right? Even when you get rich and famous, right? This happens all the time, right? Somebody gets rich and famous out of the blue and they leave their whole friend group behind. You know, all these life changes for them. Are you still going to remember that? Are you still going to remember those, right, that you were committed to before you become king, before God elevates you? It's a really hard, simple truth, right? Promotion, right, messes with humans' heads. Promotion in any way, shape, or form, it messes with us, right? Sometimes God moves us on, and he moves us on from people, and he moves us on from position, and he moves us on from all kinds of things. But sometimes, like, we move ourselves on from people. And so Jonathan is like, hey, I'm going to do this for you, but can you promise me that you're going to remember me as well, right? You want me to remember you right now, but will you in the future? I know Jonathan's declaring the promises that God has for David. I know that God's going to lift you up. I know that God's going to take care of your enemies. When all of that happens, could you still show my family kindness? So verse 16 says this, so Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, may the Lord require it at the hands of David's enemy. Jonathan made David vow again because of his love for him, because he loved him as he loved his own life. You see, they recommitted. They recommitted, reminding each other, hey, we love each other. Reminding each other we're committed to each other. We've made this covenant, right? It's not wrong to remind God of his covenant with you. It's not bad to remind God of his promises, right? Hey, God, you promised this. Just want to remember that. Could you tell me again that you promised it, right? It's not wrong to walk up to people and say, like, hey, remember, we made a covenant together. We're one, right? Remember that. Right? Does that trump all other divisional things that the enemy would love to do? Hey, we are one first. Right? Whatever the enemy wants to do, however he wants to draw us apart, whatever is going to happen to me and whatever going to happen to you, let's remember that we are committed to each other. That sounds familiar because it is. It's the New Testament, right, concept. Jesus has the same thing, right? Do this in remembrance of me. Hey, guess what? You're going to get on and you're going to be blessed and you're going to be doing ministry and it's going to become addictive and it's going to be exciting and all of these things. Will you still remember me? So every time you do this, do it in remembrance of me. Remember who I am. Remember what I've done for you. Remember. Why? Because we will get pulled away. We will get pulled away from what's important. We'll get pulled away from who's important. We get so caught up in doing that we forget about being. We get so caught up in the what's, the whys, the hows, the wheres, the whens. We will forget the who's. Doesn't always happen intentionally. Sometimes it just It just happens. Life gets busy and we forget who is important, right? Who we should be taking care of. So I want to challenge you with that. Are there some covenants that you need to revisit? Are there some promises that you need to revisit? Right? Are there things that you need to say to God? God, I know you promised me this. You said this was going to happen. You need to make sure that it happens for me. Right? Keep your promises, God. If you're serving a God who doesn't keep his promises, then he's probably not worth serving. Right? So we want to make sure that sometimes we're remembering and reminding, right, of the promises that we've been made and the promises that we make. Well, think about that for a little bit, and we'll see you next time. Simple Truth.